Hello, hello, hello. I am Majestic Michelle. How are you guys doing today? Well, today I'm going to talk about shadow work, right? That one thing that everyone's like, no, stay away. I don't want it. Well, it was interesting this last weekend as I was doing some clearings and that stuff up at a metaphysical shop that I work at. Um, one day a weekend, one weekend, once a month. And one of the ladies comes up to me and goes, so how much do you charge for a 3 card pull? And I go, well, I don't do tarot readings. And so she's like, so what do you do? I go, Akashic Records. And she's like, oh, you mean shadow work? She's like, yeah, I don't do that stuff. And it really brought up the fact that why there's so many people who are afraid of shadow work. And so we're just going to go ahead and talk about it a little bit today. Um, and I'm just going to read from my notes, and then we're just going to go off on other things. So there are many times when we are seeking approval from others for what we are doing. Sometimes it comes out of the mouth asking if they understand. Just because someone understands how you are thinking does not mean they agree with what you are doing. Our minds are this great tool that they have that our minds are this great tool that we have. And like any tool, you need to know how to use it. Our minds will make us see and believe. This is why the saying that you need to change your belief in order to change your life, it's not always about the mind, it is also about the heart. This aligns with shadow work. After all, shadow work is learning to control the emotional mind. This happens when we learn when we learn to love the dark side of us. Because it is when we can love that dark side of us that we are no longer afraid of it. And if we are no longer afraid of it, we are no longer resisting it. See how that kind of works? Anything you're resisting, you're attracting more. There's also another way. This one seems to be the biggest one of all. This one is called spiritual bypass. And this one here, I know for this one here for a fact because I did it for many years without realizing I was doing it. So this is when your past is so dark, so traumatic. You don't even want to think it because you're going by that law of attraction thing where, if you're thinking of it, it is happening. And so you kind of go overboard to the other side where you're like, no, I don't want to think about it. I don't want it in my life, which is really pushing it away for that resistance. So therefore, it starts to really show up even more within your world and your life as it. And then when this year happens too, when we're doing that law of attraction to that extreme, what's going on is that our minds have to work hard. And then we get tired. And then when we get tired and we relax, what happens? All that stuff starts to come back at us again. And then we get frustrated, irritated, like, why isn't this working? Well, it's not working because you're not dealing with it. And I'm not saying dealing with it like you need to go back and relive it. I'm saying dealing with it is that as an adult, we get to look at things differently than we did as a kid. And so when things happen to us, they may have happened to that child within you, but they really didn't necessarily happen to the adult. We're just playing that emotion that we felt during it in other events now throughout our adult life. So it's time to come back, release those emotions. And this is what I do. I love to do. When I go into the Akashic Records, we go in and we start to release those negative emotions that are caught up and trapped in that trauma. So that way you get to look at it a lot differently than you ever had before. And so life becomes a lot different. And it becomes a little bit more interesting as we deal with things. Yes. Just so you know, I also have my podcast going on over here. So I have people on there. So I'm kind of looking to see what kind of questions they have. If you have any comments here, I am on StreamYard. Go ahead and pop in and we can go ahead and do some questions there too. Yeah. So today is the first day of February. And since some of my cards work with shadows, the one I pulled today was Shake It Off. So there's a lot of stuff that's been happening around the world this last, should we say, 12 months for the most part? Maybe not quite, but it's getting there, isn't it? And right now, people are becoming more aggressively abusive in situations than they had been even in 2020. It's almost like with the change of guards, they now have that right to be aggressive and abusive to where people are physically being abused while shopping. And people, we need to start shaking the stuff off, going, you get to do your life, not my stuff. And February is the month of love, and this is the card I pulled for today. How fitting, right? So this year here is from the Earth cards, Earth Magic cards, and it's love, compassion. Do you guys know the difference between compassion and empathy? This came up a lot this weekend too when I was doing readings. Everyone's like, no, I want to have empathy and compassion. It's like, no, you just want to have compassion. Because empathy means that you're feeling sorry for that person, for them being in that situation, which means you're taking off a piece of your soul fragment and you're handing it to them, going, here, I want you to have a piece of me to make you feel better, which we don't want that because then that diminishes who we are as a person and a soul. So we want to have compassion. Compassion is, oh my nose, sorry guys. So compassion is allowing, is knowing that they are where they need to be. You understand where they need to be, and you're willing to be there with them, to sit with them, to talk with them, however they need you to be to get through that moment in time. So some people have this great verbiage when people are in this mood going, do you need me to listen or do you need advice? And so when people need compassion and they're having those issues and that stuff, maybe we need to start asking that question and allowing them to decide, hey, I either need somebody to just to listen so I can get this out, or I'm really, really stuck and I need advice. And that way they get to have control back, given back to them, where they feel empowered no matter where they're at in their life. And hello, Mama Huss. If you have any questions or anything about shadow work or anything that you're working on, just go ahead and type it in and we'll see what the guides say today about it. So one of the other things that came up for some of the positive stuff around this month is honesty. And yeah, this year's like a reality check too, because when we need to be honest with ourselves, we also need to have that reality check. And this is where that compassion and asking people whether they need you to listen or whether they need advice, because that's also going to give us that reality check. Like sometimes they just need us to be there with them. And then the other positive is thoughtfulness, which also goes along with making sure that we're giving other people the power to choose on what they need. And then faith is the other card that I drew for the positive stuff for this month. And it was interesting because a lot of people that I've been talking to lately, they're like going, oh my gosh, I have all this hope. But you guys know that hope diminishes, right? And it can change into something else. So but if we bring that hope into our heart space and we go there with faith, faith doesn't ever diminish. Faith is always there. So it's time to sit there and go, maybe I need to figure out how to bring this down. And again, that's all about the shadow work and controlling the emotions that are around traumatic events. Because sometimes those traumatic events that we went through have been so intense that, again, we want to forget them instead of dealing with it. Exactly. When we have, so here it says, truth spoken, heightened empath is part of PTSD with trauma or abuse. Makes sense to have compassion. And so we're gonna bring it back into the faith, into our heart space. But yeah, we're gonna get back on track here with the spiritual bypass, because then there was the one thing with learning about law of attraction that I did for many years without realizing I was doing it. And then when I would like, oh, this is working, and things would be great, I would relax thinking, okay, my mind's got this, the world's got this. And then everything would fall apart. And it was because my heart didn't have it. So that was the interesting thing, is that when your mind has it, it takes a lot of energy. And then that is actually when we get physically tired and spiritually tired, because our bodies are not made to put that much energy into our heads. Our bodies are designed to have all that energy go back into our bodies to help coexist with our head and our brain. So we need to get back to bringing all that energy back into our body. And I know a lot of people say grounding, but the earth just wants our stuff. We don't want to ground to the earth too much, because the more we ground, the bigger our bodies get. Because we're also, as empaths especially, we're absorbing the earth stuff, which we really also don't want. So to get back into our bodies, a technique that I use with my clients is, because majority of them are women, is that touch both hands over each other, over your uterus. And then if you've had a child before, I want you to close your eyes and think about what it was like being pregnant. And if you haven't, I want you to close your eyes and imagine your uterus being a bowl for energy and just pushing that energy back into that bowl. Just going to go ahead and take a few seconds for that. Feel that energy shift? I know I did. And so when I feel like as if I'm getting too much into my head and out of my body, that is what I go and do. And it only takes a few, like not even a minute to do that. So shadow work is extremely important. Having compassion is extremely important. And so moving forward with all this stuff, we need to help move the earth and the humans that are on here into their next level of ascension. And as we talked before, ascension is this great and wonderful thing, but our bodies and souls are constantly going through this ascension. So this ascension is nothing new. And so, but it's been this huge buzzword. And then they're like going, oh, I feel like I have a headache, or I feel dizzy and lightheaded and all this other stuff. And they're like, are these just ascension symptoms? Yes and no. In order for our bodies, in order for our souls to move up, our bodies also need to be physically ready for it. And so if our bodies are not ready for it, our soul is going to go, hey, we're going to create this issue because we need you to look at this so we can move up vibrationally, because your body's not allowing it right now because it's not ready. And so we need you to look at this. And remember, our bodies came from the earth, and so they go back to the earth. And so that's another podcast that I'll be doing some other time on why the phase of I believe in the science is keeping us outside our bodies, how other things keep us outside of our bodies within this world around today. But today we're going to get back into the ascension and shadow work. And they really do go hand in hand, because if you're not doing your shadow work, you're also not going to ascend. And so this right here allows us to move through and ascend every single time we can embrace something that happened in our childhood. Some childhoods, were pretty decent. Some are pretty chaotic. Some think they were pretty chaotic, but they really, if you think about it, were not. It just wasn't what they needed as a soul. And so that's the other thing we need to determine, is that during your childhood, did your soul get what it needed to move forward in this earth? And if it didn't, how can we get it to you now so that way you have the strength and the know-how to continue on your path? And this is also where the Akashic Records comes in more and more. I really love the Akashic Records, fell in love with it, has helped my life out tremendously. I love seeing how my clients prosper from it. But yet, so many people do not really understand what the Akashic Records are all about and how they help. So the Akashic Records actually helps bring us outside of this earth atmosphere and earth ether. It is our 8th chakra, which is not attached to, it's attached to us, but it is up above about 18 inches above your head. So it's the first one that's not like right on your physical body. And so with this, it is able to attach to the ethers. And so when we go up to the 8th chakra and we have it open up and we're able to open to the ethers, there's a lot more going on within the universal world that we get to see than if we chose not to go there or have somebody else go there. Yes, we can say that, hey, I want to work on this emotion. Like I'm feeling like whenever I do a certain event, I feel pain. And we can work on start journaling on why that pain is coming through. And then when we get down to it, we might actually end up having to relive that event with those emotions because we're already feeling that pain. The Akashic Records, when we go in and we start taking care of that emotion that is creating that pain, when it's done, we get to look at that event completely different. It really becomes an outside event versus an inside event. And I know this to be true. Had a testimony this last weekend from a client that I saw, and she worked through some stuff doing exactly looking at it that way. I know with my childhood, having the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse, around my stuttering, around just everything. And so with that one there, it was really like I didn't want to relive all those painful moments. But yet I also knew that I needed to take care of those emotions that were around all those painful moments. So what I did was learn about the Akashic Records, start tapping into it, helping myself release those emotions that I no longer wanted around those events. So that way there in this lifetime, I can go, oh, yeah, that was this and this and this. And I was able to work through it, having emotional control about it. So that way the pain didn't come back and I didn't have to relive it. Because the only time we relive anything is through the pain. Pain and emotions is what makes us relive anything traumatic that we might be going through. So, are there any other questions out here today? We have about 5 minutes left. All right. So, there's no more questions today. Let you know about I have a special this month, a 1-block clearing for $25. You can go find that on my website at healingwithmichelleadams.com. I also will be at Gearing on March, the first weekend in March. I believe that's the 6th and 7th. Doing the holistic fair there in Gary, Nebraska. I'm also up in Cheyenne the last Saturday of each month, where I'm doing Akashic Record clearings up there for the day. And those are all on my website too. So just go ahead, pop in, take a look. Thank you for joining me today, and have a great day.